Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host Rashid, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me today. We're waiting on my friend, and and the person that will be the co-host today, and that will be Carl Zha. There's a difference in time. He's on the other side of the world, so we've done this and we've run this play before. So everybody, be patient. I'm shooting him out another link to make sure that the other link works for him, and I know he'll be good to go. So let's see. Again, thank you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, anywhere on YouTube or social media. This is your platform for empowerment, education, and elevation mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and economically. This is the Red Pill Diaries. Let me go to the chat real quick. I'm multitasking. I got to give a shout out to my girl Holly Horn is in the building. I got to give a shout out to Perseverance Chameleon. Shout out to my guy, and shout out to my guy Joel Bradford. We're gonna as soon as Carl gets in the booth, we're gonna bring him up, okay? And we're gonna chop it up because there's a lot of things that I want to ask him. I want his insight on a few things. Oh, there he is, right? He's contacting me right now. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Okay. He says he's powering up his laptop right now. All right. So, and it's like, so you got to give him a little break because it's like 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning his time. So you got to give him a break. Okay. Shout out to V, and I don't want to butcher you. Every time you come on, I tell you, with all due respect, I'm just going to call you V because I don't want to butcher your name, and I will butcher it, and it's not intentional. Okay, I'm a Southern country boy, and I'll butcher that name. I'm sorry, but I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me in the chat. All of you who are listening will be joined in a brief moment with Carl. So don't go anywhere. If you have any like topics that you want to talk on or any issues that you want to discuss, you can put it in the chat and we can go at it. But there are a few things that I want to talk about. I always want to talk about certain things that are for the security of my life and my family's life, and the betterment of myself and the betterment of people in general. One thing we know for sure is that man in the Oval Office is crazy as hell. We know that much. We know Joe Biden is crazy as hell. We know the people who bag him are crazy as hell. And guess what? Whoever takes the office after him will be crazy as hell. These are megalomaniacs that we deal with. And they'll promise you the world and give you an ice cream cone. And he's in the booth now. I'm going to bring him on in. I got to bring my guy in. Without further delay, I got to say, what's up, Carl? How's it going?
Hey, Rashid, long time no see. Good to see you
Yeah,
again.
man, I'm so glad to have you here, Carl. Let's chop it up because I don't want to waste any time. I want to pick your mind. I haven't been able to pick your mind for a while. So what, from the outside looking in, what is your perspective on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict?
Well, this is just a continuation of the anti-colonial struggle the Palestinian people have faced for the last 70 odd years. This is the mainstream media is trying to convince you everything started on October 7th. No, this started in 1948, even beyond. I mean, the Zionist project was started in the late 19th century when the British Empire tried to divide and conquer. They tried to divide up the Ottoman Empire, and then they got in cahoots with a head Zionist. And they Herzl, and then they decide, okay, let's have a homeland for the Jewish people, so they don't have to stay in Europe. So that this is basically their goal. And in fact, at that time, the only Jewish MP in the British Parliament was against the project. He's like, wait, what's the idea here? We are okay, like we're supposed to just deport all the Jews from Europe and send them to Middle East. What's the big idea? But that was the idea of the Zionist project. And basically in 1940, after World War II, the Europe, which bears the burden for committing the atrocity of Holocaust, wants to pass off, instead of facing up their guilt and do the appropriate appropriation, they decide, you know what, we're going to let the Arabs pay the cost. The Arabs is going to pay for our sins we're going to ship all these Jewish people to Palestine. And so this is what we end up with. And so you have people from Brooklyn, now they have a right, they're entitled to a piece of Palestinian land if they just buy a ticket and go to so-called Israel. And whereas the Palestinians themselves, who has been living in the land for centuries, they are now being asked to evacuate Gaza. Israel told people of Gaza to move from northern Gaza to southern Gaza, and then Israel proceeded to bomb southern Gaza. And like the argument is like Hamas is using women and children as human shield. Where can they go? Freaking Gaza is the world's largest open air prison. You are freaking tossing fire bombs in a prison, and where can these people go? And now they're saying, oh, why don't the Arab country take them? Hold on, wait a minute. Most Israeli citizens have double passport. They actually have the option to go to New York, go to London, go to Paris, go elsewhere. But they're asking people in Palestine to go to other people's countries because and this is actually the actual project the U.S. is financing, because let's face it, it's been 2 months since October, and there's no way Israeli war machine can carry out its operations for over 2 months without ammunition supplies from the United States, because Israel is not a great industrial power. It does, the American empire is very compartmentalized. Israel's focused on like the research department wing of the empire. They don't have the industrial manufacturing capacity, so they have to import all these munitions from the United States. That's why U.S. is now saying, I'm sorry, Ukraine, I got priorities because Israel is our golden boy. We got to take care of our golden boy. So all these artillery shells that you really want, sorry, you can't have them. We got to send them to Israel. And another reason, because we often talk about America has deindustrialized voluntarily for so long. Now, contrary to what Janet Yellen said, U.S. cannot afford a two-front war. It cannot afford it. It's not even a matter of affording the war. It's that U.S. doesn't have the industrial capacity to supply a two-front war. Even proxy war, and some crazy chicken hawks in Washington think they can take on China. I mean, that's totally insane. Like right now, the balance of power in terms of manufacturing capacity, China versus United States, is like World War II, U.S. versus Japan. Whereas United States is in the position of Imperial Japan, in 1941, and this has all happened because the U.S. capitalist class decided it's a good idea to outsource and hollow out the U.S. Industry, because they want to make more money. They want to chase, the lowest labor costs. They want to chase after their bottom line. So they thought, let's financialize everything. We don't need to actually make stuff here. We'll just make people in the third world produce stuff for us. It works perfectly. It's a great plan. And now they're suddenly waking up. Oh, holy crap. China is now this industrial giant, and we depend on them for everything. And maybe we need to do something called de-risking, but that's too late. It's like we talk about them theme again and again. And the people in Washington, I actually think they know this is a bad position U.S. is in, especially in Middle East, because This is not. I don't think this is something they planned for, because you have Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor to Biden. Just before October 7th, he went on air, publicly saying, well, Middle East hasn't been this calm for a long time. And we take full credit for that because, because the Biden administration have worked our magic. So the Middle East is totally calm. And then, and he blew up in their face. So they weren't prepared for this two-front war. And now they're scrambling but they're so stuck in like the old thinking that despite 70%+ of Americans want ceasefire now, but our so-called elected officials still going like 100% rah Israel. Like Joe Biden, he just spoke at a Hanukkah dinner, and he said, well, you don't have to be Jew to be Zionist. I am a Zionist. And guess what? And guess what? The U.S. Congress just passed a law said anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. So now, because Biden is a Zionist, if you're anti-Biden, you're anti-Semite. I mean, this is the stupid logic they're coming up with, and they're literally make the U.S. Congress. I love to say U.S. Congress has the best politicians the money can buy. I guess now that's an anti-Semitic statement, like now that placed me in the same corner as Kanye West, right? By saying shit like that. And they're trying to climb on descent because they actually know this is bad. This looks really, really bad. That's why they're twisting, they're doing their best to twisting headlines. Every time you read about Palestinian casualty in Gaza, it's all like death happened. Like death happened to the Palestinian. It's like a passive tense. And I read the latest Israeli newspaper report. They're actually talking about now the Israelis themselves are worried. There's so much death and destruction in Gaza, and there's so much destruction of infrastructure, especially with the destruction of the capital in Gaza. Now they're afraid that infectious disease like cholera, etc., will spread to the Israeli population. But they have to like twist themselves in a pretzel to come up with a headline for that. They say the morbidity increase in Gaza is having Israeli concern. It's like, look, I wonder where did that morbidity suddenly happen? It happened when you dropped shit tons of bombs on these people, and this is we live in the bizarro world, Rashid. I mean, that's why every time on your show I'm always going on rant because I've been holding all this stuff in. This is we live in a total bizarro world, and we have a ruling elite that completely does not care about the public opinion, about what the rest of the plebs are thinking, because they continually act in a way contradicting the popular opinions in the United States. We're supposed to be the world's greatest democracy. Like we have a choice, and yet the politicians are all lining up to see who is more pro-Israel. I mean, look at the Republican, that clown show of a presidential debate. Right, and you have people like Nikki Haley's like rah Israel, and it's like, is this a debate about who is going to be the president of the United States or who is going to be the president of Israel? It's like which country are you serving here? And for a person like me, why I don't care about Israel. Look, like this is why I need to devote, you are hijacking the entire country, the apparatus of the United States to serve your golden child, Israel. But that's your golden child. Israel is a Congress golden child because they're getting all the fundings for APEC and everything. And what the rest of the Americans are getting stuck with moral burden of knowing that our tax dollars goes into raining bombs on children of Gaza, and this is really obscene. And just a couple of days ago, the UN just passed a resolution calling for a ceasefire, immediate ceasefire. And of course, United States is among 10 countries that objected veto. Now, UN resolution, Rashid, we both know there's the most toothless resolution that especially Israel never, cared to implement. Yet even a toothless resolution like the UN resolution, United States doesn't have the decency to abstain. They could just abstain from the vote. No. They have to go against the grain and vote against it when the whole world wants just peace. And so right now, U.S. is really burning up its credibility around the world right now. This is the reason when Putin traveled to Middle East, he's getting fitted around in Saudi Arabia, in UAE. They're rolling red carpet out for him because people are looking for leadership elsewhere. Nobody thinks Joe Biden, knows what he's even talking about half of the time. And he have Biden also just said in the Hanukkah dinner that he said, my father, survived October 7th Hamas attack 65 years ago. I mean, okay, we know this guy, half his mind is gone already. And so right now we have a senile, old, declining, decrepit empire led by a senile, decrepit man with half his mental faculties. And the ship is sinking. And this is why we have, in the latest UN resolutions, you have the traditional U.S. vassal states like Canada, New Zealand, and they're all calling for ceasefire now. The rats are the ship is sinking, and the rats are trying to get out. All the rats are scrambling to get off the board because they all see this is looking really, really bad. This is the internet age. There's only so much you can censor and control the narrative. Can everybody hear me? The broad, yeah.
I'm looking. I just put something in the Rumble chat to see if they can hear now. I don't know what's going on because everything on my end is saying it's good. Everything on StreamYard. So this has to be a StreamYard connection. So and we are to expect this. Naeem88 said it's loud and clear on YouTube. It's possible because could you switch to it instead of Rumble? Right. Listen, for those of you who are on Rumble, please let me know if the volume is still muted or whatever like that, and I'll do my best. If you're listening on YouTube also, because I'm pretty sure you can't hear me if it's muted. So if you're listening via YouTube, put something in the chat to let me know that it's still muted, and we'll try to work something out. It's almost out of my control. I believe they're starting to mess with the distribution of the show, and the main distribution of the show is StreamYard. It distributes it to Rumble, YouTube, and all the rest of them. And I'm trying to get everything in line. So please let me know, and I really apologize for that. But we're going to move forward and just let me know. Carl, I wanted to ask you something. Now,
hold that thought.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I ask for a bio break for like 1-2 minutes?
Go ahead.
Yes. I'll be right back.
Okay, that's cool. Now, everybody, I'm trying to see if you can hear me on Rumble. You should be able to hear me on Rumble. I don't know why you can't hear me on Rumble. I don't understand, because it's all streaming from the same source, and that is StreamYard. So once again, I tell you all, every show there is somebody or something trying to prevent the show from growth and trying to prevent the truth from getting out. But we'll continue to go along. Perseverance Chameleon also said that YouTube is fine. I'm waiting for an answer on Rumble to see if they can hear me now. Let me see. Rumble is a little bit behind. Let me refresh the screen. Maybe they can hear. Let's see. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, I think they'll be able to hear it now. I tried something, and hopefully you guys can hear it better over there. And I want to apologize again for what's going on, but I didn't do it. I don't know much about computers. I just want to let you know that right now. All of the fancy stuff that you see, that's my son. But let's go into something. We're giving Carl a break. One thing for sure is this. First of all, I want to go back to something that Holly said in the chat. She said something about dementia. I remember that. Man, the thing is going so fast, I can't get back to it. She talked about Joe Biden having dementia. I'm missing it right now. And I wanted to address that. And maybe he does have dementia. But if he has dementia, he shouldn't be in office, right? Because the man sits at, quote unquote, the most powerful seat on the planet with power, the so-called president of the United States. And if he has dementia and they allow him to sit there, then he's a danger and a detriment to not only the security of the United States, but to the entire globe, because he has his finger on the nuclear dial that can ignite nuclear war. So that shows, in essence, that shows you the insanity of American leadership to allow him to remain in power and have this cabal around him to run the show, knowing that this man may be senile and could initiate a thermonuclear war. That shows you the insanity of this. But Carl, I wanted to go back to something. I wanted to ask you something. And this is back on the, before we move on something else, this is back on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I noticed the line that almost everybody speaks without a second thought, be it mainstream media or alternative media. They always use this phrase, of course, Israel has the right to exist. They use that phrase all the time without stating that Palestine has a right to exist. And so how does Israel automatically has this right to exist? And I'm not saying it doesn't, you got to be careful on the platforms of their deplatform you. But how can on one hand they say that Israel has the right to exist on Palestinian land, I might add, but the Palestinians don't have the right to resist or to reacquire their land by any means necessary?
Right. I mean, this is facetious. Just like they also always ask any Arab or Muslim guest who come to mainstream channel to talk about the conflict, the first question they always ask, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? Nobody asks, do you condemn Israel? Right? I mean, like, there's no moral equivalency here. First of all, like Israel is the occupying power. Does Israel have a right to exist? Fine, let's return to the 1967 borders, or even better, 1948 UN resolution. Let's do that. I mean, this is what the two-state solution is all about, right? So both Israel and Palestine can coexist. But this is not what Netanyahu wants. This is not what many of the Israeli establishment want. They want the greater Israel. But now they're actually now they're saying the slogan from river to sea is a slogan for genocide. That's crazy. Like from river to sea, Palestine must be free. That's just, they're calling for free Palestine, but they're saying, no, that means the genocide of the Jewish people. It's like, nobody's calling for that. No, it's only in your mind. And this is a lot of projection again. This is why Biden was recently saying, if it wasn't for the state of Israel, the Jews would not feel safe anywhere in the world. I was like, what? What are you saying? You're saying the United States would not take care of its own Jewish citizens? And then I was like, oh, wait. Actually, that's true, because U.S. doesn't care about its citizens at all. and the only people that care about is the people who have shit tons of money, and or if you're Jeffrey Epstein, and like that. I mean, I'm Jeffrey Epstein, man. This man was obviously getting, was obviously linked to foreign intelligence services like Mossad. They have so much blackmail dirt on everybody, all the important politicians and businessmen. But right now, how is bombing Gaza defending Israel, right? I mean, like we all know that that's bogus. And right now we have real on-air footage of a real atrocity, real war crimes being committed. They're stripping men naked and parade them in front of the camera, and then they release those photos. Somehow these Israeli propagandists really think these image being shared all over the world is supposed to help their cause. I mean, I don't understand what that mental gymnastic is, but I think at this point they just don't care anymore because they know United States have their back no matter what. That's basically what Bibi Netanyahu said. He said, "Yeah, the Americans are gullible. You know, we'll make them do what we want," and which is true. You have to say because that's Biden is out there proclaiming himself a Zionist right now. But I'm gonna push back on you on a little bit about Biden. Like because I think he's a perfect candidate for the deep state because now you have a clear puppet who half the time can't even form coherent sentences, and there's always a plausible deniability when Biden goes out and says something crazy. They're like, no, he's just a senile old man. He doesn't mean it. He's like a nice grandpa, really. But like this is why they and let's face it, I don't even think by people they let him touch the nuclear launch button at this point. like Biden has his handlers, and for those handlers, they just roll him out to giving speeches once in a while, and then but they are running the show. I don't. Nobody thinks Biden is actually running the show. I mean, this is why you have a leader without responsibility. He can say whatever he wants. And you get back public reception. They can backtrack and say, "Oh, he doesn't really mean it. You know, he doesn't really know what he's talking about." And but back to the whole Israeli thing, they are actually turning the whole world's opinion against them. You know, this is a big difference from like early 90s. I remember when I first came to United States in 1990. Back then, even talk about Palestinian statehood is like a no-no. Like at least in the political arena. I even remember there was a time when Hillary Clinton got pillarized in the U.S. media because supposedly at some point in time she said she was for Palestinian statehood, and then they all say she is a communist and pinko. and that was kind of the world we live in, freaking Hillary Clinton, right? But the world has moved on. Now most of the people around the world sympathize with the people of the Palestine. The only people who are standing with Israel are these politicians who are so out of touch with their own public. And so I think this is actually, it doesn't bode for Israel because they are, they're running against the clock. Look, the things they're doing, no matter, there's only certain amount of goodwill you can buy with money around the world. Sure, money can accomplish a lot, but there's only a certain amount that they have already pushed against their limit. And right now, people are waking up and seeing the horrible atrocity happening in their own timeline. And I don't know how Israel can continue to perpetuate because they say they're going after Hamas, but the Hamas is intact. Hamas leadership is intact. Israel actually took out Hamas senior leadership many times before, but Hamas has replaced them. And with these public humiliation they're subjugating the Palestinian people, they are perpetuating the resistance. I mean, the best recruiting poster for Hamas or any Palestinian resistance group is what Israel is doing right now. They're killing doctors and babies and leaving babies abandoned in incubators. Remember the sob story about Iraqi troops throwing babies out of incubators? Today, this is happening in real time, which the White House spokesman doesn't even deny. But he said, oh, that's all Hamas' fault. How is it Hamas' fault when freaking Israel went to the hospital, told all the doctors and nurses to evacuate, and the medical staff begged them to take care of the babies in incubators who can't move out, and then a few days later, people come back and saw rotting corpses of babies in the incubators. We are living the real bad world that they project the Washington, his enemy, is actually all these atrocities they're supposedly carrying out. And right now, because it's done by Israel, it's all hush hush, and it's all like we got to stand with Israel, and Israel has a right to defend itself. I mean, if Israel's right to exist and Israel's right to defend itself means it has to kill babies, it has to target innocent civilians and wipe out Palestinian journalists, maybe Israel doesn't have a right to exist. I'm sorry, call me as anti-Semite. If the only way to perpetuate your existence is inflicting genocide on other people, then there's some obviously something wrong with your institution. And again, this is all because Netanyahu do not want a Palestinian state. They do not want to have coexistence. They do not want two-state solution. And the one-state solution they have is for a Jewish apartheid state, because they can't give equal rights to the Palestinians living on this land, because right now there is an equal portion of Palestinians and Jewish people between River of Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea. And if they give the equal rights to the Palestinians, that means it's no longer a Jewish state, which was a specific goal of the Zionist project. The whole Zionist project is create a specifically ethno-religious Jewish state. Their goal was not to spread democracy to the Middle East. Spread democracy, one man, one vote. They can't have that, because that means the end of the Jewish state. And so that this is a choice they're facing. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have one state, but only with the Jews at the top and the Palestinian on the absolute bottom remain permanently downtrodden underclass. They're not even second-class citizens because they don't have citizenship rights. They are being they're being bombarded. They're being subjected to daily humiliation of going through thousands of Israeli checkpoints just to go do the daily routines or go to their schools. And they have Israeli sellers throwing garbage onto the Palestinian houses down below. And like anybody who kind of knows any history of Palestine would see this is gross injustice. And the politicians are willing to close their eyes and shut off their ears is because their palms are being greased somewhere, and they understand the weirdness of U.S. electoral politics means none of the politicians feels they can afford to be seen as anti-Israel, and this is where so to the point that Biden is basically screwing all his Muslim voter base for the Democrats, because I don't think he's getting any Muslim votes coming 2024. And then you have all these liberals say, how could you do that? How could you let Trump take over? Look, Biden is allowing genocide of their people happening, of their cousins or their families in the Palestine. Why? I mean, why would they continue to vote for this man? This is. It doesn't mean they're going to vote for Trump. It just means they're not going to vote. And what you're going to have is you're not going to have that swing vote in battleground state like Michigan. And we're going to look at Trump presidency looks increasingly likely every day. And this is what the United States we're working with. We're coming 2024. We have, again, two choices again, Biden or Trump. And this is I mean, now we're talking about the right of United States to exist, because we have have obviously a failed dysfunctional system, and everybody's in denial about it, especially our politicians. They talk about some nonsensical subject like Rick Scott from Florida just said Chinese garlic is a national security to United States. You gotta be kidding me! Okay, I had to think about this for a second, and I realized, wait, vampires don't like garlic, so this totally makes sense. It totally makes sense why a U.S. congressman thinks that garlic is a national security issue. But look, we all know it's a clown show in Washington, and right now, but these clowns are enabling a real 21st century genocide happening in Palestine. Washington is actually pressuring the Arab countries right now to agree to Israeli plans by accepting Palestinians. So what they want is to kick all the Palestinians out of Gaza Strip, move them to Arab countries as refugees, just like a repeat of 1948 Nakba, right? Except it's happening again in 2023. So they can cleanse the land of Gaza of Palestinians, so Israel can move in and quote unquote rebuild it. And what's the plan? They're going to invite the Palestinian back. We've seen this script before. We saw that happen in 1948 and in 1967. And this is called ethnic cleansing. They say this is why they're trying to shut down dissent by saying, "Oh, river to the sea, from river to the sea" is a genocidal slogan. To be anti-Zionist is anti-Semitism. I don't think most people, even like the people who are voting for it, even believe that. They just want to cut off dissent. They don't want people like you, me, average people, and pointing out the hypocrisy of the situation and to question their very questionable choices. And so they're like, you can't talk about it because you are now an anti-Semite by decree, by our decree. And anything else, we're going to deplatform you. That's what Elon Musk said after the advertisers threatened to pull out of Twitter. They say that's what he said. From river to the sea, and is a genocidal slogan will get you deplatformed. And if anything, we are, you and I, Rashid, we're here committing genocide of stupid ideas, of these stupid politicians who only cares about their own, pockets. Sorry, I'm done with my rant.
Hey, and I love it, and I want to put a little exclamation mark behind what you were saying about the river to the sea. Most people don't know that was actually started by Israel, but the Palestinians modified it and for their benefit, because the Israelis were talking about that first. So if it's genocidal, then you got to lay blame on Israel for it. But of course, that goes over most people's heads. But
actually, when the Israeli context, when they're talking about the greater Israel should exist from the river Euphrates, which is in Iraq, to the Mediterranean Sea, like that, the real greater Israel. They're literally just going to replace all these Arab nations, Arab countries, and create this new giant settler colonial state in the Middle East. And this is why a lot of the European and American leaders support it, because guess what? This is what they have been doing all these centuries. The same settler colonial project, and they see their own. Well, most of Israeli are their own people. All of them have like double passport. They have the option to go to New York, to go to travel to all those places because they have the passport. But Palestinians do not enjoy that luxury. They live, many of them live generations as refugees, and now they're getting bombed again.
And I wanted to stay along this line of talking, but I want to position our to like the African continent, because we're looking at the Middle East and we're looking at North Africa. And with these moves by Israel and the United States, America was already losing political capital globally, but she's losing it faster and faster. And now we see there was and not just America, but all of America's allies. Most people are not aware of this. There was an article in africannews.com. I'm .en, I guess. And it says Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger look to form a federation. And on top of that, as soon as that came out, one of the first things I heard in the news, I can't find the article, but one of the first things I heard in the news was that Russia and China are trying to move in and force these nations to push us out. And then another article came out, and I'm going to let you have the floor just a bit. Then another article came out, which really had their panties in a twist. And it says, Bank of China will use Zambia unit to boost renminbi trade clout. Meaning that since China buys a lot of copper from Zambia, and China does a lot of business in Zambia, that they were going to make it more easy for the trade to happen, and it would be done between Zambia's currency and the renminbi or the yuan, most people say. And this has them livid in Washington, London, and Brussels. What do you have to say about that?
Well, this is why Marco Rubio was going apocalyptic. He said, look, the dollarization, if you allow to continue in 5 years, we won't be able to sanction anybody anymore because they don't use the US dollar anymore. Well, that's the point, little Marco. That's exactly the point. When you use sanction as a weapon against everybody pretty soon realize, okay, maybe we shouldn't trust our national security, our economic lifeblood to these mafias in Washington. Maybe we work out a different system. And I just saw another news about Nigeria. China is building a gas oil pipeline.
Yes, it goes live. It goes live in just a few days. Yes,
they just built a gas oil pipeline connecting Nigeria, which is landlocked, to the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. So look, they don't need the West. They do not need France. They do not need United States. They are getting their infrastructures. China can provide the infrastructure. Russia can provide the security. This is how the China and Russia partnership worked in places in Central Asia and later in Syria. People were expecting China to move in on the Syrian war, but China doesn't need to do that. China is providing an economic support line to Bashar al-Assad's government. Well, Russia provides the security. That's why China and Russia's role is very complementary, because China doesn't want to send its expeditionary force into Middle East to Africa. Russia can do that. Russia has the Wagner Group. Russia has its military base in Syria, etc. And then Russia and China works in sync. They're on the same page. And let's face it, the best hope for Ukraine reconstruction is for Ukraine to join the Belt and Road Initiative. I'm serious. I mean, you think Europe is going to come up with a reconstruction fund for Ukraine? Europe is going to go to Ukraine to build infrastructure? Where have they last successfully done something like that? Right. Biden promised Africa that he's going to come with a competing plan to China's Belt and Road Initiative by pledging investing how many US dollars. That was 2 years ago. That was 2021. What happened to that, right? I mean, show me the money, man. At the end of the day, you got to show me the money. China can show their airport, the ports, the roads, the railroads, the power plants. Yeah, and what's America got to show except for Kamala Harris going to Africa talking about this is a moment in time. Half of the time, I don't even know what Kamala Harris is talking about. this woman is permanently high or something, and she is the one that would be the president of the United States if Biden croaks in office, which is a real possibility given Biden's physical and mental state at this point. So yeah, the U.S. ruling elite is a joke, and that's why they recently Xi Jinping just went to Vietnam, right? Biden was in Vietnam earlier proclaiming strategic partnership. They're talking about using Vietnam to counterbalance China, but China has been Vietnam's strategic partners for 15 years already, since 2008, and And China's trade with Vietnam is over $200 billion. That's almost the same as the trade between China and Russia. This like Vietnam is like either number 6 or number 5 of China's trading partner. Largest, it's the largest China's trading partner in the ASEAN nations. And when United States says, "Oh, we got to de-risk from China," all these multinationals got to move out their supply chain outside of China. So all the Chinese manufacturers go like, "Okay, we're gonna move our plants to Vietnam, and then we're gonna slap the label made in Vietnam and still export to the United States." And so China and Vietnam are in perfectly complementary economy right now. So China is moving offsourcing all its low margin, labor intensive industry into Vietnam, and it's helping Vietnam to upgrade its infrastructure. China built Hanoi's metro system, and China has this grand vision for the development of the region. They call the Pan-Asian Rail Link, which will connect with high-speed rail link the cities of China through Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, and all the way to Singapore. So you can take a high-speed train eventually from Shanghai to Singapore. That's a grand vision for future, for development. What grand vision does the United States have? The grand vision of the United States is we got to prepare for a war over Taiwan Strait. It's like nobody want that. Nobody want to work. People just want to trade. That's what China has to offer. They'll offer investment. China is Vietnam's top but foreign direct investment. And what did Biden also promised to invest in Vietnam, but the U.S. number just get dwarfed by the Chinese numbers. The gravitational pull of Chinese economy in the ASEAN is so great. It's like United States can't even compete, and like they did. What they can do is through regime change, through buying off corrupt politicians. Like what happened in Philippines. They must offer Marcos a deal he couldn't refuse. So Marcos Marcos is now declining all Chinese investment into the Philippines. But guess what? What has U.S. done for the Philippines? I mean, like I look at the statistics. Philippines, which had been the U.S. colony for the longest time, and it did not enjoy. Generally, it was enjoy peace after World War II. It wasn't involved in major wars. And if you look at the development index between Philippines and the rest of ASEAN, Philippines is on the bottom tier. And even Indonesia has higher GDP number per capita than the Philippines. So this is what you get for being an American vassal, and because you have Bongbong Marcos' dad, Marcos Senior, looting the country. And Bongbong Marcos now decide to be a U.S. lapdog. Got to be, the family business, the way to go. But that vision that it's not a vision for the future. It's a plan for the existing elite to exploit their patronage network to the United States, to exploit their connections so they can get their children, send them to Yale to get educated, to siphon off the funds and to stash in Swiss bank account. But it does nothing for the people, average people in the Philippines. And again, so I stop me anytime on my rant, because I can just keep going.
And they're doing it also in Thailand too. Don't forget that they've done that in Thailand with the new government or whatever.
But guess what? So the Thai Prime Minister, he indicated he is ready to resume talks about building the high-speed links between Thailand and China. And so guess what? What's the title of the new article in the Diplomat magazine? Which says Thailand's new high-speed rail links will upgrade its ties with China, but at what cost? At what cost? Guess what? I'm pretty sure whatever cost it will cost a fraction of what California's never built high-speed rail is going to cost us. And California's high-speed rail is from nowhere to nowhere, and a big white elephant project, and nothing. Whatever Thailand does is not going to come anything close to that. And at the end of the day, few years from now, you're going to be able to travel from Bangkok to Shanghai on high-speed rail, and then you California, you can travel from what, Bakersfield to another middle of nowhere town. I mean, it's that's why I say California need to join Belt and Road Initiative. So United States finally get a high-speed rail. California never built a rail without Chinese labor in its history. Okay, Chinese always built a rail in California. Like maybe it's time to ask the Chinese to do the same.
I was listening to what you were saying, and I found the article about the Niger oil and pipe, and it said this is Reuters, which is a British news organization, I think, and it says Niger aims to start oil exports from Benin pipeline in January, leader says. So we're talking about not only did China build a pipeline, but they're also building the storage capacity also.
They also built a port. They also built a port in Berlin. China is building the whole integrated infrastructure all across Africa. They're not just building oil pipeline; they also build power plants.
Yeah.
They also build to power the industries. They also build roads, railroads, ports.
Transfer of technology.
Everything is linked together. Yes, and this is the West hates the transfer of technology. They call one of the biggest problems they have with China, also in the trade talk, is about the so-called forced transfer of technology. Because China says if you want to do business in China, you have to do technology transfer. So U.S. say that's forced technology transfer of technology. Guess what? Why is it forced? If you don't, China is giving you a choice. If you want to do business in China, you got to transfer technology. You always have the option to pack up and to not come to China at all. It's your choice whether you want to do business in China or not, whether you want to make money in China or not. This is China asserting its own sovereignty. The sovereignty is something United States doesn't believe in, of course.
Yeah.
But the whole meaning of sovereignty is like, yes, you come to do business in our country, you got to follow our rule, which just means you got to train the locals, transfer your knowledge, so our locals can upgrade their own capability. And that's how California has high-speed bullets.
I saw that. I had to post that. I saw that. Ken is hilarious.
United States just got to pull its head out of its ass and work with China. The U.S. has a desperate need to upgrade its infrastructure. Like Indonesia today has a high-speed rail going 350 kilometers an hour from Jakarta to Bandung, because that was a flagship project of China's Belt and Road Initiative. And this could happen in California. I'm telling you, this could happen in California. But I'm gonna go travel to Jakarta. I'm gonna film it on YouTube for my YouTube channel of how the experience of traveling in high-speed rail in Indonesia. I gave United States. I don't know, man. Like I told you, I was a few months ago, and everything looks physically kind of the same as like a few years back. Except the price went up 3-4 times. I'm paying for the same shit, and then I'm just paying like triple and quadruple. And that's the world we live in. That's the price you pay for being an empire. And nobody's, the average working class Americans are not benefiting from that. And it's really time people say, enough is enough. Time to stop this bullshit. We don't need to send billions of dollars in weapons to Israel to bomb children and not have healthcare inside the United States. I mean, this is a basic self-interest and a moral imperative. But we all know average American can make up doesn't make the foreign policies, and instead we get all these propaganda shoved into our throats. And so back to the Israel Palestine conflict. I don't think Israel. I mean, I don't think Israel is doing well. They're doing all this crazy, insane propaganda of stripping men naked, filming them, thinking this somehow will break the spirit of Palestinian resistance. This is a desperate measure. They're desperate because after 2 months of fighting, Hamas is still intact, and they are. So the only plan, their so-called grand strategy is ethnically cleansing Gaza, and that's gonna. I mean, nobody is up for that, and right now Israel just transformed itself into a monster in the eyes of the world, and when I talk of the eyes of the world, 85% of the world that's outside United States and its European vassal states are not on board with that. And even the American vassal states, the rats are jumping the ship. I'm telling you, Rashid. Like the Europeans always have a choice to switch sides, and right now you even have Canada, New Zealand, etc. They're all suddenly signing up for the ceasefire because they saw this how. It's just bad policy to be against peace. Everybody want peace. Why are you against peace? I mean this at a minimum cost to themselves too, because UN resolution, everybody knows, is kind of it's toothless. No, Israel is not going to implement that. So all you have to do is just say, hey, we're for peace, man, and United States leadership can't even do that. So let's see how the empire currently it's scrambling, it's distracted, and I think I don't see any kind of coherent plans to dig the U.S. empire out of that hole. So I think we're going to be in that hole for a while, and while the rest of the world will march on with China, with Russia, with BRICS, with you see what happened to Argentina. The Argentinian's new president before the election, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to cut off ties with China. I'm going to cut off trade with China because I don't want to trade with those freaking communists." And then and then now his first act as a presidency is to ask China to extend the credit line to Argentina. I mean, like, this is when the reality hits. It's like, you can talk big during an election, but at the end of the day, you got to face the reality. And it's time for American leadership to face the reality too.
But they're little kids. There are no adults in Washington. Thank you, Ken, for the super chat, for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. There are no adults in Washington. And if there are adults, they've been relegated to the back of the classroom, and the imbeciles, they are running the show, as we can clearly see with the policies that they continue to push, which are not only detrimental to the world, but it's also detrimental to America's standing and America's national security. I was just thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking about how she continues to provoke. Like, let's just use common sense for a minute, because common sense is not so common today. China holds over $1 trillion in U.S. debt. China is the United States' largest trade partner. China is the largest investor, the largest banker. All right. Now, 93 to 95% of all goods on your stores, in your store shelves, come from China or a subsidiary of China, like one of the smaller nations that does the work and then put their China does the work, the smaller nation puts the tag on it and ship it to the United States, like you were talking about. Now,
even your video games come from China. Epic Games, it's owned like 48%. Yeah, 48%. Yeah, everything. I was shocked. Like, Epic Games is 48% owned by Tencent. China is financing the game development in United States, but the thing is, there's still the fear of losing the hegemon status, of the number one status of the United States. I think that's something they can't let go. That they are. We hash out this many times, Rashid, because they really clinging on to be USA number one, to be the unipolar super duper hyperpower that have full spectrum dominance all across the globe. And right now they're panicking because they saw that's slipping through their fingers, and China and Russia is rising in the standing in the world. And they, for some reason, they psychologically just cannot handle that. And this is why also they're so wrong on the Palestine and Israel, because people like Biden, let's face it, their best years, their peak years was like the 1980s and 1990s. The world has moved on since then. That was 30 years ago. And this is why they still feel like they have to act the same as they did back in the 80s and 90s. And this is why there's a lot of junior staffer at the lower level in the State Department are rebelling, because they actually understand this is bad for America, but their senile superiors who are still in office, they can't see the program. They can't see where the world is going, and they're too stuck in their ways. And so we have a senile, decrepit empire, senile, decrepit, declining empire led by senile, decrepit, octogenarian leaders. This is the state of the U.S. empire today.
But you left out an important point, and I have to go back and make sure that everybody understands one of the main things why the United States is so frantic, while they continue to focus on China and say that China is the most pressing threat to U.S. national security. Here are the facts. Because China is independent as a nation, because China is a non-Western nation, and because China is a non-white nation. Those three things are unacceptable in the Western world, and you can see it. They say it behind closed doors. They say it in their papers, their writings. But publicly they don't acknowledge it to the average person. But if you go and read their writings that comes out of these think tanks and these government tanks, they say that. They actually say that. And but the masses don't understand that the United States is so frantic because of those three things. China is an independent nation, China is a non-Western nation, and China is a non-white nation. Those three things spook the United States out, because in the last few hundred years, it's only been Western nations that have been able to dominate the global landscape. And they fear Russia. They don't even consider Russia white. They call them all kind of names and stuff. They won't even accept them into the European sphere of power. This is why
white is a flexible category now, Rashid. The white is whatever they think. The white is whatever they define the term to be. It's like your eyes are lying to you, Rashid. No, the Russians are totally not blue-eyed and blonde and whitest looking people in the world. No. They must be Asiatic. Somehow some kind of Mongoloid. The legacy of Genghis Khan or something.
Yeah.
But this is kind of the Western liberal mindset, right? They really think they can, by performing this, regurgitating constant propaganda, they can perform like self-deception into these, obviously it's for them, it's like self-evident truth. The Western liberal order is like the end of the history. And any challenge to that, like you said, China broke the paradigm for the last 500 years. And now their Western liberal brain can't handle that. It's mind blown. It's like this is why, and this is why they don't understand why Russia and China is working together when you guys have been screwing both nations for decades and pushing them together closer than ever. And they're like, no. I mean, it's just a phase. Russia and China, that's just a phase. It's gonna pass. They're gonna get back to bickering. In the meantime, we're still gonna wage proxy war on both of them. But in the hope at some point they're gonna do like the Sino-Soviet split again. It's just like you have to perform a lot of mental gymnastics to remain a firm believer in the Western liberal order today. And this is why for the people on the outside, for us to look at these fools, we're like, we just laugh because it's totally laughable. But for the people who are firmly in that mindset that they have to, because they have to believe in the Western supremacy. For them, that's their identity. That's everything. They don't have much outside. Their whole identity depend on the Western supremacy. Well, once you see this non-Western, non-white nation can rise to the top without invading other countries, without enslaving other populations, they're like how is that possible? They must be cheating. They're cheaters. Because the only way we know how to develop is to pillage and committing genocide and enslaving other people. There cannot be a possibly other way forward. And so this is why they got to put down China. This is China is setting up a bad example for the rest of the world. That's not what they want to go by. Despite their best effort, I mean, they're failing because right now they're let's just say they don't have the best minds staffing the U.S. empire right now. The U.S. empire got to a place where it's so complacent. You have all these mediocre intellectual midgets, running the show, and there's only so long you can run a global empire on such limited human resources. I'm sad to say, but that's where we are.
Thank you, Chaotic Brain, for 500 yuan. I think, yeah, that's it. I want to also talk about, since we're on this China thing, and we're talking about how the West feels threatened. And I believe what's speeding up the fear is that all of the levers of power that the West used to be able to exert on China or anybody, like the sanctions, the threat of war, and all of this other stuff, it no longer holds suits like let's take China for instance. Again, they sanctioned China to stop China from progressing in chip manufacturing. And I want to read something to you right here. This comes from let's see, TomsHardware.com. It's a tech industry website. Excuse me. And the headline is this: evidence mounts that China has sanctions defying 5 nanometer technology. It says how Huawei reportedly preps new AI processor built with Chinese fabs, and it says in N2 node. And then the first paragraph says this: TrendForce, a market intelligence firm, reports that Huawei is prepping a successor that will be made using SMIC's N+2 fabrication technology. Huawei's high silicons post-Ascend, and I'm just reading it like it is. I don't understand this part. Post-Ascend 910B AI chip is expected to offer higher performance, partially due to its new process node. The next generation AI processor purportedly uses SMIC's N+2 processing technology. Now, this has them freaking out because China just came out with a chip and they thought it was not possible for China to come out. And now they've come up with an upgraded chip that now rivals some of the best chips in the West. And they're freaking out because the sanctions didn't work. What have you to say on this?
Okay, so this is problem when you have people who don't understand technology, who don't understand the industry, and been put in charge of policy. And one of the greatest strengths of the U.S. tech industry is adoption. is a worldwide adoption of the U.S. standard and U.S. technology. But U.S. government is coming out and say, we cannot have that in China. We're gonna sanction China. So that's taking the whole of China, this huge market, off the shelf for U.S. companies. I mean, it's no longer possible. Before, Huawei would be perfectly happy to design their chip in-house but have them manufactured on Taiwan by TSMC. And it was perfectly happy to source NVIDIA AI chips from United States. But US says, no, you cannot manufacture your chip on Taiwan anymore. No, NVIDIA cannot sell their AI chips to China. So for Chinese companies, do or die, like the only alternative they have now is rely on domestic manufacturer. So now Huawei now have to work with domestic Chinese chip maker SMIC, and say, okay, we sorry we kind of overlooked you before, but now we gotta work together because that's the only way we're both gonna survive, because both of us being under sanction by the United States. And so now it's creating a synergy that even past Chinese government's own policy couldn't create, because Chinese government before is not telling Huawei you can only buy Chinese-made components. You can only work with SMIC, the Chinese government didn't say anything like that, because Chinese government was all for like globalization. You can buy whatever best product for your company, right? You are a private company, you can do whatever you want. But now there's suddenly an economic incentive for all these Chinese companies to work together, because it's do or die. It's like they're getting physically cut off. So now it's creating like a virtuous cycle. So all these money that Huawei puts in to buy chips from SMIC goes into research and development of SMIC to develop the next generation chips. And now Huawei has to design everything in-house instead of paying the big bucks to NVIDIA to buy NVIDIA's AI chips. Now they develop their own chip in-house. Ascend, that's the Huawei's name for their own AI chip. The AI is something that US was really worried about China catching up, because Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO, he has the idea that the AI, the generative AI, is going to be like the next industrial revolution. And his idea is US must remain dominant, maintain a tech lead in that aspect. We can't have China get a jump ahead, like a leapfrog United States in the AI arena. So that's why they're trying to limit the chips technology to China, so China doesn't have a leg up on AI. But it's doing the completely opposite effect. It's actually spearheading China's AI development at this point, because now China is decoupling from United States by U.S. policies, and they're progressing ahead despite U.S. sanctions. And the only thing that U.S. can come up with, Gina Raimondo, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, just said, we're gonna up our ante on sanction. We're gonna place more sanction on China, because you know what? Because if it doesn't work before, let's just do it again and harder, right? So let's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to work. Except Gina Raimondo's like, we just got to do it harder, the sanction harder. They're expanding the sanctions. So going to force more Chinese company to seek domestic solutions. And let's face it, these people obviously haven't been inside U.S. high research institutions, Well, I have, because my dad was one of the researchers at the University of Illinois in Chicago. When I went to my dad's labs, there's a lot of Chinese grad students there. I mean, and now U.S. policy is actually making life difficult for these Chinese talent who had chose to work in the United States. So many of them are now heading back to China, either motivated by patriotism or also by more personal self-interest, because life is getting harder in the United States. China is offering more incentive for them to go back. And so this is enforcing a virtuous cycle where the Chinese tech continue to power ahead despite the U.S. sanction. And China has a natural advantage in AI because one of the main tool of AI development is training the machines on human behavior. And China has a huge population base, and this is why like they come up with like TikTok algorithm and stuff like that, because that has all they all tried on the Chinese consumer first to figure out what ticks, and then they exported the algorithm worldwide. So this is why China has a natural advantage in AI development. This is what makes the people in Washington afraid. It goes back to the same fear of losing hegemony. This is in the tech space, and they think, and the Chinese also understand that because Chinese had a bad experience on missing out on the first industrial revolution back in 1840s. The result is Opium War, and that wasn't pretty. So the lesson that China took from the Opium War is if you fall behind, you get beaten, you get invaded, you get brutalized. So we can never fall behind again. So for China, this is an existential issue. They cannot afford to miss out on the next industrial revolution in AI, and they're devoting all their resource into it right now, both by China's own state policies and also by United States state policies, because US is forcing them to working together more closely than ever before. And now Huawei is putting their AI technology in Chinese manufactured electric vehicles. Like all the latest Chinese cars, electric vehicle cars, they have the Huawei Harmony OS, they have the Huawei AI chips. And this is all happening in-house without United States. And all those billions of dollars that China used to spend on importing US technology, that's all now going to China. And it's going to fund the next level Chinese research. So, US is not winning this battle right now. And as we all said, China is going to power ahead no matter what, whether with or without United States. I mean, they're still gonna power ahead. Because why would you think anything different? Because they graduate tens of thousands of engineers every year. They have like the best scores in science and math, that's what Chinese kids want to grow up to be astronauts. The American kids want to grow up to be YouTubers. So I mean, like, how do you think you can compete with that?
I'm glad we're on this subject because it goes back to what I was saying before about China holds over $1 trillion in U.S. debt. Everybody, hold on one second. Carl is hilarious, I'm telling you. But and 93 to 95% of all goods on U.S. shelves are from China or a subsidiary of China. And then we have the United States now talking about that next year they're going to deploy mid-range missiles to the Asia Pacific to deter China. Now, it's not aggressiveness by the U.S., but it's to deter China because China is aggressive by deploying warships off China's own coast. And so on top of that, I was just reading an article that came out on December 7th, and it was talking about U.S. must prevent Chinese century. This is what DeSantis says. And he says something that he would deter China's ambition and prevent them from invading Taiwan. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Almost all of the globe recognizes Chinese Taipei as an integral part of China, the one China. Even the United States national policy recognizes Taiwan or Chinese Taipei as part of one China. Now, what business is it of the United States if China deploys troops to a province of China? China did not make a big issue about the United States deploying troops to Texas or to California or to Hawaii.
it gets worse, Rashid. Recently, David Cameron was being interviewed, I think on BBC, and he was asked by the interviewer a question. He said, "Well, China is, pushing for peaceful reunification with Taiwan. So what if the peaceful reunification does happen? What would you be your response?" David Cameron says we cannot allow that to happen. No, peaceful reunification. Okay, nobody's talking about war, invasion. See, David Cameron is like, no. Even peaceful reunification is not in our interest. I mean, he was just saying the quiet part loud, because we all know Taiwan is basically an outpost of the U.S. empire at this point. It's one of the many U.S. client state in East Asia. It's what General MacArthur called the unsinkable aircraft carrier. And that's parked on the doorstep of China. This is a real reason why U.S. cannot afford to have the reunification happen with mainland China, no matter what. Even if it's peaceful reunification, they're against that because they're really peace is not on their mind. On their mind is China cannot get back together. Mainland China cannot get back together with Taiwan because that threatens the whole structure of the U.S. imperial system. And that's really what they find unacceptable. And again, I'm sure people of Taiwan can look at what happened in Ukraine. Like this is what happened to Ukraine is a good example from all the people in the world. This is what happens when you volunteer yourself to be involving a deadly proxy war against U.S. enemies on the U.S. behalf. So after a couple of years, they just kick you off the curb. U.S. Congress is now saying, "Oh, we're done funding Ukraine war because we have our golden child Israel to take care of. Sorry, Ukraine, we got priorities, right? It's not U.S. number one, it's Israel number one. Israel is always going to be the top priority on the minds of U.S. politicians. So Ukraine, Taiwan, I'm sorry, they don't even come close. They don't even come close to Israel in their importance to the congressmen in Washington. And so we have we are kind of like sitting here laughing at the last stage, the late stage of the American empire. we're just laughing at the way it's going down. But right now, China's fault is in these neocons' eyes, basically existing and thriving. That's a China threat. It's like, how dare you can exist outside the American imperial system and actually succeed, because that sets a really bad example for the rest of the world when they realize, oh, okay, maybe United States, U.S. empire is not dispensable. It's not indispensable in the well-being of the development of the people. So and again, this is where China offers vision for the future. Xi Jinping's slogan is the common destiny of the mankind, of a shared future together. And the whole idea is to be friends to all and enemy of none. But that's not what the Western understanding of geopolitics, because in the US, it's always zero sum. It's like, what's good for me? That means less for me. What's good for you is less for me. I cannot have that. I have to have more for me, less for you. That's the only comfortable way I can live with. And more and more people are seeing through that. And this Palestinian conflict is also just basically exposed wide open the hypocrisy of the West, and U.S. is taking a huge reputational damage right now, all for the sake of its golden boy Israel, for Benjamin Netanyahu's ambition to remain the Israeli leader, because that's what really this is about. Because Netanyahu was facing domestic revolt before this, and now he's trying to play the wartime leader, and he's dragging U.S. on his side. through the mud, into the quagmire, and I just don't see how Israel will gonna come out on top in this, because the this whatever atrocity and war crimes they commit, that's not gonna break the spirit of resistance. It's only gonna harden it, because people now have they can't now when you make sure they cannot even lead a normal life, they have no incentive. Now they have every incentive to continue to fight the oppression. And I'm sorry, I'm not a peaceful guy. I'm not like anti-violence at all costs. When you are facing when you're facing with oppression, when you're facing with enemy who want to ethnically cleansing you, want to genocide you, want to bomb your home and kill your children, sometimes violence is the only answer, Rashid. I mean, like, you are not gonna get. Palestinians have tried peaceful resistance before, like nonviolence approach. That didn't get them anywhere. I mean, like at the end of the day, you have to do what the Vietnamese did to kick the Americans out. You have to do it with a lot of violence, and what the Palestinian resistance have done. The people are looking at this like kind of analyzing like a baseball game or something, like, oh, look at all this equipment Israelis IDF have. They're doing what kind of damage they're doing to all the look at the kill ratio or whatever. That's not the point. This is what the Vietnamese understood in their war for independence and liberation against Americans. They understood war is politics by other means. The ultimate goal of the war is to achieve the political aim, which is to get the Americans out of there. And so when they launched the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, it was widely seen by American military intelligence as a failure on Vietnam's part, because they launched the Viet Cong launched this large-scale offensive, but in the end, a lot of they paid a very heavy price for it. But what it actually did was a great victory in the political victory. It might not be a military victory, but it was a great victory for Viet Cong, because American audience, for the first time on television live, they saw all these crops or politicians selling them about how the war is winnable in Vietnam. That's all bullshit. and how everything was manageable in Vietnam. Just like how Jake Sullivan was telling the press how Middle East is this calm, peaceful land of, how this land of calm, peaceful ocean. That mythology got blown out of water. And now everybody can see. The Israeli atrocity is wide open for the whole world to see. And again, that's a political victory for the Palestinian resistance. Yes, they're paying a heavy price, but guess what? The Vietnamese, they were willing to pay that price, because ultimately they're fighting for their national dignity, they're fighting for independence, they're fighting for liberation. And Americans, at the end of the day, they are chicken hawks. They like to go for the soft target. And when they find the price is too high, they're like, okay, we're just kidding. We're going to pack up and leave right now. And now they're trying to get back into the good grace of Vietnam, right, after 40, 50 years later. And so I think, people are looking, those military nerds who are analyzing this purely hardware, kill ratio type of way. It's kind of misguided approach. This is a national struggle. This is an anti-colonial struggle. This is they're willing to go to the length to make the price unaffordable for their colonizer, for the settlers, because all these Israelis who left the kibbutz destroyed in October 7th. How many are going back? How many are going back to that? Right? I mean, like this is what So yeah, so I'm sorry. Violence sometimes is the answers. Violence sometimes works, and you have to be smart about it, be strategic about it. you apply it in such a way to make your enemy either come to the negotiation table or to make them back off, and that is the end goal. You know, I think right now I don't think how long this Zionist project can continue at its current pace, because I don't think it's sustainable. They have to rely on continued support of the United States, but at least the people in the United States or have at least show the decency that they are overwhelmingly for peace. And it's only our leaders, the decrepit old senile leaders, that's holding out. And I don't know how long they're gonna hold. I mean, next year we'll find out. like we will see. Like we have we're gonna get a new set of clowns in office, and let's see how they will handle it. But at the end of the day, the U.S. empire is no longer well-oiled machine. Oh, I just saw that report about the U.S. Navy. They couldn't find. They're 20% short on their recruitment goals, so they have to cut staff on the USS Gerald Ford, which is the most advanced aircraft carrier currently in the U.S. Navy. But because they couldn't recruit enough sailors, they have to. The ship is only like 80 or 70% staff. I mean, this is the reality of the U.S. military war machine. And yet these chicken hawks in Washington think they can use this force to go to war with China. I mean, like they can't even find enough sailors. I mean, like maybe it's time for them to round up the village people to do another in the Navy music video.
So we're going to come back to the Chinese U.S. Conflict that is brewing, but let's switch over to the Ukrainian situation. We know that it had been a goal of the United States for a long time, ever since Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote that book about the Grand Chess Board and talked about Eurasia and how if they could separate Ukraine from Russia, they could prevent Russia from being a great power and prevent it from reemerging as a global superpower. And we have seen Russia only using 10% of its military force destroy 3 NATO armies, and it's working on the 4th one. Because prior to the war, remember, they were saying that Ukraine was the most powerful army in Europe, and it was the largest and the most powerful army in Europe, and it was trained to NATO standards. And Russia destroyed that army 3 times over, and is working on the 4th one. The United States funds are running out. We're seeing that the weaponry that is built to be top-notch weaponry not working like it was built to work, and we see Russia's weaponry leaps and bounds ahead of anything that the West has. Where are we in this conflict, and what is it showing the rest of the world when it comes to American and NATO military might?
Well, I mean, like you saw all these people talking about all these wonder American weapons, the HIMARS, the Patriot missiles. Now we get to see what the Russian Kinzhal hypersonic missile can do to the Patriot missile battery. I mean, there's no context, and the cheap Russian drones that was manufactured in cooperation with Iran is taking out the expensive Leopard tanks. You know, all these NATO top of the line NATO equipment, and at the end of the day, it's not about funding the Ukraine war, because U.S. can continuously printing dollars. But at the end of the day, that's paper. That's paper currency. To supply the war, what Ukraine need is basic stuff like artillery shells, and that's something the United States cannot provide. Why? Because U.S. has willingly hollowed out its own industries since 1970s. U.S. have deindustrialized because U.S. capitalists, U.S. Wall Street types decided, you know what? We look at the bottom line. If we offshore, if we move these factories to China, we can save on the labor costs and then more profit for our shareholders. And so that process has been going on for 40 years now, and the end result is now U.S. on paper is nominally the world's largest economy, but again, a lot of that is remain on paper because OnlyFans is counted as part of GDP, right? but at the end of the day, that's not how you're gonna win a war. That's only so much moral support the OnlyFans can provide during wartime. You still need basic stuff like artillery shells. And U.S. just do not have the industrial capacity to produce artillery shells for Ukraine anymore. Even with $1 trillion budget for defense spending, because let's face it, $1 trillion U.S. defense budget, that's mostly going to grift, paying for like vacations and retirement in Bahamas for the U.S. top senior leadership and their lobbyists. And then so U.S. is, but Russia, even with the collapse of Soviet Union, even with the total collapse of military-industrial system that was built up in the Soviet Union, Russia today can still produce enough shells to dwarf the numbers put out by the United States. And at the end of the day, artillery is still the king on the battlefield for army, for land battle. And it's ridiculous to think that somehow U.S. can continue to prop up Ukraine to fight Russia, to keep Russia down. I mean, like there's a common refrain from the United States, like McCain used to say, "Oh, Russia is there just a gas station with nuclear weapons?" I've been to Russia in Moscow in the summer. That gotta be the most beautiful gas station I've ever visited. I mean, it's like the Sistine Chapel of the gas stations, and like it's a place I would totally live, a gas station where I would love to live if it wasn't for the weather, for the 6 months of winter. But like that, because McCain can get away with a statement like that because most Americans don't even own passport. All the people who travel outside the United States have been to Mexico and Canada, so they have no idea. They have no idea what is it like in Russia, in China, and so they're continually being led by their nose on foreign policy issues by our dumbass politicians. And talking about the making artillery shells. So somebody actually made a funny comment. It's now the battle in Ukraine. Both sides is outsourced their shell production to both Korea. So the South Korea is supplying artillery shells to Ukraine, and North Korea is supplying artillery shell to Russia. And this is kind of this is what happened when you shift all your industrial production to East Asia. U.S. did that in the 1970s. He first went to Korea, and then later he went to China. So this is why U.S. is telling its vassal state, South Korea now, is to continue to send artillery shells to Ukraine because U.S. can't produce it themselves. So again, and U.S. is also expecting its vassal states like South Korea to be on the front line in a war against China, its neighbor, its giant neighbor. So the whole U.S. plan is to make its vassal states bleed and fight for them and provide the men and the material because U.S. can't. It doesn't even have men to staff its own navy anymore. This is all house of cards, I tell you. I mean, this is all house of cards, all mirrors, and I don't think, and people, I don't know how many people at the top of the U.S. Leadership realize kind of the dire situation of both the U.S. industrial capacity and its own decrypt military system. I mean, like instead, the best they can do is drumming up the China threat to somehow create the urgency for reform. But the last few years, for all this talk about China threat, none of this trend have been reversed. United States continue to hollow out industrial capacity to be more a service-oriented economy, which means more giga workers for Amazon, for Uber, and still that's not manufacturing capacity. That's not going to give you artillery shells. That's not going to give you people to staff your navy. Because what's the incentive now for people to get stuck in an iron ship out in the middle of the sea, doing like stupid stuff like intercepting Houthi ships shipping in try to protect the Israeli shipping in the Red Sea versus the Houthi missiles or something like that. And this is you become errand boys. Nobody likes to become errand boys. Everybody knows that U.S. military is not really for protection of U.S. homeland. People don't care about that. But this is why on 9/11 there were very few fighters that was actually scrambled, because most of the U.S. fighters were forward deployed to the borders of China and Russia. And that's why we ended up where we are today.
Yeah. Before we go further, first of all, everybody hit the like button. We're gonna bring this to a close shortly, but please hit the like button and subscribe. Tell others about it. And Mehdi, I saw the joke Mehdi put in the comments, and so I got to highlight it. Mehdi said Mehdi became a YouTube member. He was already a YouTube member. Then he says, he says, "LOL, Mehdi let his membership payment lapse by accident." so everybody is in on the joke in the day, but I love this, Carl. So before we close out, let's transition back to China, because we were talking about Chinese Taipei. For those of you who don't know, Taiwan, and I know I've read a lot of writings on this situation, and you were talking about how America will not allow for a peaceful settlement of the cross-strait issue. And I read a lot of writings where the United States was hoping to use the first and the second island chain to keep China hemmed in militarily so that they can hold them hostage economically and militarily and politically. What do you have to say about that? And please rant.
Okay, so Taiwan issue is interesting right now because Taiwan is coming up with this new election cycle. The election is going again. So the ruling party, the DPP, which is the official pro-independence party, which had been ruling Taiwan for a good part of the last decade, is very unpopular because Taiwan's economic circumstances is not improving. And Taiwan is now in many ways similar to developed economy in the West, in the fact that its own manufacturing is hollowing out. They all moved to China decades ago, to mainland China. And so all they got right now is their flagship company, TSMC. Like if you look at Taiwan's economy, GDP numbers, TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductors, is like the biggest chunk of Taiwan economy. If you take that away, it's like there's not much left, right? And United States is doing its best to destroy TSMC right now. First, by denying TSMC of its biggest natural market, mainland China. It tells TSMC, oh, you can't do business with mainland China anymore. You can't sell chips or manufacture chips for Huawei or any Chinese companies. And then United States says, okay, what we said about we are really against forced technological transfer to China, but TSMC, you need to transfer your technology to United States. So we need you to open a plant in Arizona. So United States now they have the CHIP Act, which is funneling hundreds of billions of dollars to supposedly spur the semiconductor development in the United States. A lot of that money went to entice TSMC to open their plant in Arizona. So first of all, chip manufacturing is a very highly water intensive process. I don't know whose idea it is to locate a water intensive factory in Arizona. Like that's a genius idea in the first place. But now the Arizona plant, after years of planning and building, is still not operating because they have problem building, because the locals are now upping arms against their plan to import Taiwanese engineers because they said, well, you should hire American. And then they have a problem recruiting enough local talents to run the Arizona plant because the chip manufacturing is 24 hours. You have to keep the machines running. So that actually means a long hours. Those are the conditions that Taiwanese engineers have to put up with in Taiwan. But Americans, it's not going to put up with that. They're not going to freaking work like 10, 12 hours a day without overtime pay and stuff like that. And so the management now is trying to import Taiwanese labor. They're like, no, you can't do that. Like you're trying to import cheap labor. And so right now they have a standstill. The Arizona plant is like in limbo after hundreds of billions of dollars being poured into it. They're still not making chips in Arizona, and the TSMC president Morris Chang himself is really reluctant. He actually said this whole American project to bring semiconductor onshore, that's not happening within 5 years. I mean, it's just not going to happen in 5 years. He proudly out said this is not going to work, and he's right. It's so far the TSMC plan hasn't taken off. So U.S. is sabotaging Taiwan's flagship industry, TSMC, by trying to divert their production or technology to U.S. mainland itself. Hollowing out further hollowing out Taiwan's industry, and at the same time, the Taiwan populace are very unhappy with the current ruling party because their economic prospect is not improving. They face a lot of the same problem of the Western youth are facing. Jobs, housing prices are rising, unaffordable, and their job employment future prospect within the island of Taiwan is not looking up. This is why a lot of Taiwanese, more adventurous Taiwanese youth are going to study and work on mainland China right now because that's a land of opportunity, and they can actually leverage their cultural skills and the language skill to work in China. And so given the low approval rating with the DPP, the current Taiwan ruling party, the only problem is it's the opposition's election to lose, but the Taiwanese opposition is divided. Now they have like a four-way election. They have the DPP polling around like 30% in the polls, but then they have the opposition candidate polling at 20%, another opposition candidate polling at 20%. So now we're gonna look at maybe DPP is gonna win another cycle of election despite their unpopularity, because basically what Taiwan election 2024 is shaping up is like the US election back in the early 90s when Ross Perot joined the race and divided up the votes to allow Clinton to win against the senior Bush. And so now it looks like the DPP might continue to serve another term. But so I expect a lot of the status quo to continue because let's face it, Taiwan government, all these proclaim about independent stuff, they will never do anything without explicit approval and go ahead of Washington. And at the current juncture, when U.S. is facing the problem with a two-front war in Ukraine and Palestine, I don't think they have a big incentive to light a match on the Taiwan issue right now. So it's more likely the U.S. This is the background of the Xi Jinping and Biden meeting in San Francisco, by the way, is because U.S. want a floor on the Sino-American relationship. It's not doing anything to raise it up higher, but it just doesn't want it to stop falling any further. So for the short term, before the 2024 election, there's going to be a lot of talks in U.S., a lot of anti-China rhetoric, but I expect more of the same. I don't expect fireworks in the Taiwan Strait, just because it's not in the current interest of the United States to lit up the tinderbox, because they already have their hands full in Palestine and Ukraine, and they're already juggling that. They're gonna be overwhelmed if there's gonna be another crisis developing. So this is what I see. This is my take on and also China also sent a big peace signal by rolling out a project to develop all the coastline facing Taiwan. So for a lot of people don't know, during the Cold War, the whole Chinese coastline facing Taiwan was left undeveloped because of the threat of war, because it could be bombed anytime. So now China is plowing a lot of investment on the coast opposite of Taiwan Strait. That actually means the Chinese leadership don't see any prospect for war in the immediate future. So that's actually a big plus. So I think Taiwan issue will remain status quo for the time being, which is more the Chinese military, the People's Liberation Army, is going to assert sovereignty by continuing their flights around Taiwan, continue their patrol around Taiwan Island, and the U.S. will still do crazy stunts like flying their spy planes up to the Chinese coast and have like the Wall Street Journal or CNN reporter on board to film the exchange. You'll continue to have incidents like that, but I don't expect a big blow off. That's my take.
Well, Carl, we got to run this back. We got to do it again, man, and we got to do it again soon, man. Thank you for joining me. Mehdi had a question for you before we go off there. He says, one question for Mr. Zha. What would you say the percentage of U.S. machine products come from China, South Korea, and Japan?
So I don't have the numbers in front of me, but off the top of my head, I would guess a higher percentage, because like the machine parts, machine product, they come either from Europe, which means Germany, or Japan, or Korea, or China. These are the main sources. And the United States is destroying the German industry right now.
Yes.
I mean, their whole Ukraine war sanction on Russia is totally hollowing out German industry. So now the German industrialists are moving their plant to United States because there's cheaper natural gas here. So which means now there's an even greater proportion of machine products coming from East Asia. So that means China, South Korea, and Japan. That's my answer. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but my guess is fairly high.
Okay, in closing, do you have any closing words?
Well, I mean, I thank you for inviting me again, Rashid. It's been a long time. I really enjoy to come to your show and continue my rant. And we're going to continue to just laugh at this imperial decline into its twilight, while our incompetent and decrepit leaders are presiding over the fall of Rome. Like they're literally like the Nero fiddling while the Rome is burning. And I'm just glad I made the decision to come to Bali. So I guess at least I can see it from the distance.
Well, I'm stuck. So I'm stuck in the middle of Rome burning. Hey, Carl, thank you, man. I'll send you the link to this show in just a few minutes, man. And I appreciate everything.
Thank you, Rashid. And let's do it again. Soon.
You better believe it, my brother. Everybody, thank you all for joining us. Remember to like and subscribe, share, let people know about Carl, let them know about this platform. Anybody that's trying to get the truth out, support them in any way possible. On that note, we go out the same way we always come in love and in truth. For all of you who love peace and truth, know that we love you, but the true and living God will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. And for the channel members, part 3 of that series drops tonight or early in the morning. Thank you so much, everybody. Hey, mama, look at me. Your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. We're definitely out of here. Be blessed, everybody.